Alrighty then, this is Defiance. I'm reading it aloud. I'm on Chapter 2, Part 1, first half of Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is titled, and Defiance is the sequel to Defiant, which is already up on YouTube. A link to it will be here. You can jump over and listen to that, or you can listen to me read part of Chapter 2 as we're building up for the big event that keeps things going. Chapter 2, Coming for You. Mayors of the three cities weren't what I expected. No one prepared me with background information sheets on them. That was a lesson learned for future formal visits. I put it in Gloria's hand and Doug's hands to make sure no visit happened without knowing who exactly was coming, beyond their titles and what exactly they wanted to discuss. We retired to the mayor's nicely paneled conference room. Beatrice sat off to the side to take notes. The table supported far more than the six of us there. The mayors had brought a bonus person. Bill Parsons from Denver. Cosmo Entwistle, mayor of Seattle. I nodded as they introduced themselves. Cosmo Entwistle. His parents must not have liked him, I thought. Sherry Muller, Des Moines. That's in Iowa. As if I didn't know where Des Moines was. Maybe she had to answer that question too often and led with it to forestall questions from those who didn't know the larger cities in the lower 48. I couldn't let it go. I know. There was one other person with them, a representative from the federal government, James Yelchik, U.S. Attorney to the District of Colorado. Call me Jim. Nice to meet you all. I'm sorry, but I didn't get any kind of briefing on why you're here. Please understand that I'm not a politician. I'm not going to butter your muffins for the sole purpose of extracting favors, or platitudes, or good press. I want to have candid conversations about the challenges of leadership in a climate of significant change. From worst to first, they call it in sports. We want to know where the prior administration went wrong, Bill Parsons asked. I was taken aback. I didn't have a poker face, so my disdain for the question would have been obvious. The shorter list is what they did right, and that is get themselves elected and consolidate power. Everything else, wrong, and even more wrong. So much so that the entire mob of them is in jail pending trial for fraud, theft, manslaughter, and much more. They were people who held themselves out to be better than the average Alaskan. They were incorrect in their premise that we needed to be taken care of. These people had no business in office. Is that the answer you were looking for? What did they do first that raised the ire of the citizens? Parsons was pressing. Two questions and my skin was crawling. I was a mayor and this was my home. I had no intention of assisting others in doing what the previous administration had done to us. It was presumptuous to think I would help them. Instead of putting my foot in my mouth, I chose an alternate course of action. I stood. My apologies to you all, but I had a busy schedule and this meeting was last minute. I'm out of time to talk with you. I fixed James Yelchik with my best Marine stare. Explained to them the finer points of the Second and Fourth Amendments. Don't want to follow the Constitution, your life as a politician will be a whole lot better. Ma'am, gentlemen, I bowed my head briefly and headed for the exit. Beatrice preceded me out. I left the door open because I invited the visitors to leave. The mayors and the attorney were talking animatedly. I turned my back to them while talking with my secretary. I leaned close to Beatrice. If they try to reschedule, I'll commit to 2 weeks from next Tuesday, I believe. 30 minutes worth, no more. Otherwise, please keep that bunch away from me. That was the extent of the goodwill I was going to extend. Back in my office, I pulled up what information I could find on the three mayors and the U.S. attorney. I found they were aligned with the current administration, the one who supported my predecessors. They came here to find out how to do it right. It was appalling, and I was having none of it. The second Laura arrived, I logged off the computer and grabbed my light jacket. I only had 2 more meetings scheduled. Beatrice shook her head. Not again. I'll call them. We don't need to meet in person. I had no idea who I was supposed to be talking with. That was Beatrice's department. I trusted that she'd send me their phone numbers when they received the bad news that I was out of the office. She wouldn't lie to them because that's not how I rolled. She would tell them the truth. I wasn't in the office. If they wanted to know something beyond that, then they were assessing their position as superior to mine, and that my reasons for not being there were inferior to their desire for an in-person meeting. They'd get over it. They all did, eventually. New rule, I told Beatrice. No more than 2 meetings a day. I'll do phone calls if they go through you first, so you can set me up. No meeting will last longer than 20 minutes. They can say what they have to say and be done. Also, no outside visitors. I have nothing to say to them. If they insist on coming, foist them upon Gloria and Doug. Beatrice nodded, tight-lipped. Laura waited. I get it, she said. I can't think of anything more reprehensible than wasting time. Is it good for the city? Is it good for the people? Those two go hand in hand. Anything else, the so-called politics as usual, are a huge waste of time. Here's a secret, B. I'm not running for re-election. Nothing I do is to win votes. All I want is the city to run like it can. Period. End of story. Everything else is noise, like that bunch who stopped by today. They are what's wrong with politics. They have earned my absolute disdain. Beatrice laughed. Are you off your soapbox? Sorry, I mumbled. Laura shook her head. The two tolerated me and my idiosyncrasies. We know you hate politicians. You can be less vocal about it. Just smile, shake their hand, say, would you look at the time? And then walk away. I'll do that from now on. I won't let this consume my life, I vowed. You already did, and that's how you got yourself in this position, Laura added. Damn it. I hugged her and we left. Beatrice could leave any time she wanted. It didn't make any difference to me as long as the taxpayers received value for her time. Time and value. Those were the principles I applied to the mayor's office. I tried not to take my salary, but they said it wasn't legally permissible. So I dropped 100% of it into support for the homeless kitchen, directly and indirectly. I was glad Dorothy schooled the patrons. They didn't need to know, but they didn't need to take their ire out on me either. Defusing the situation had helped me. It would take the city to rebuild itself, but it needed the citizens to take care of each other. It was my job to bear the brunt of their angst. It crushed my soul knowing that I was doing everything I could, but it wasn't good enough. Proud people were eating at the homeless kitchen when they should have been able to provide for themselves. It made me want to go straight to the jail and start punching the real perpetrators of the crimes upon the citizenry. I had that thought too often. It was starting to annoy me. Laura stared at me while I sat on the couch with Star Trek reruns playing on the television. Our dog, Euripides Eumenides, sat half on me. I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Laura was smacking a wood spoon into her palm. I remember when you used to help, she said, but it was without judgment, despite the spoon smacking. Her voice was kind but tired. She'd spent the day in the kitchen already, just not ours. I eased Euripides' head off my leg and and turned toward the kitchen. I grabbed Laura on the way and gave her a big hug. My hands found their way to her backside, which earned a spoon smack on mine. The stove and oven are both on. Do you want me to burn down the house? She smacked me a second time and led me into the kitchen. It was only 2 steps. It's almost ready, and then we can turn off the stove if you want. I was transparent when it came to our continued honeymoon. I always want. I smiled into the darkness, blinked until I could see the light. What light penetrated the closed blinds and curtains. Being the mayor made me paranoid. What the hell? We held our breath while we waited. Many interruptions. Many power interruptions. Many power interruptions only lasted a few seconds. When it stretched to a minute, I checked my phone for the outage map. The power flicked back to life. My uninterruptible power supply, the UPS beeped once and went silent. Better finish dinner just in case. Before Laura could reach the stove, the power went out once more. I was on the power company's website. They hadn't posted anything yet. Not surprising, as the outage had been in effect for less than 2 minutes. It was late spring, and there was plenty of daylight. I guess it's good enough, Laura said. She kissed me on the cheek and pulled out the plates to dish out our dinner. I didn't hold out hope that the power would return anytime soon. The generator should have been functional, although it had been a while since I last fired it up. Our personal. I went outside to check it, despite Laura's objections that dinner would get cold. I shouldn't have worried since it would started on the second pull. I powered it down. We would need juice for 2 to 4 hours, depending. We'd run the freezer and the refrigerator first to make sure we didn't lose any foodstuffs. Everything else could go without power for as long as we didn't have any. Inside, Laura was putting the plates on the table. They were filled with spaghetti. The butter had not yet melted on the garlic bread, but it was close enough. One couldn't complain about a good meal. Thanks, beautiful. It's better than I deserve. I took my first bite. It was plenty hot and hit the spot. No complaints. You never complain. You're happy as long as you don't have to cook it yourself. I tapped my nose while chewing. My phone rang. I chewed faster and swallowed. The note on the screen said it was the head of the power authority. Mr. Mayor, I have bad news. Call me Cory, give it to me straight, and then tell me what I can do to help. Okay, I think that's enough for today. First half of chapter 2. Hopefully it kept your attention. A lot of stuff, a lot of nuance, a lot of politics and bullshit like that. Sorry about the language. We don't have bad language in here, though. Damn and ass, I think, is the only two things I use. But there we are. I'll pick up tomorrow with the rest of chapter 2. Thank you for listening. Peace, fellow humans.